I think it's interesting because within our remits of work, we're obviously there to kind of hold people's hands through the legal process. So we obviously work alongside family lawyers. We don't give legal advice, but we very much help clients navigate that process and try and help smooth that along whilst they're going through the legal process. But a big part of our job is also about the emotional side. So helping people to recover emotionally. And I think that kind of comes in two kind of areas. One is the kind of raw emotion of the breakup, the end of the marriage, the end of the relationship, those losses that we've talked about in terms of our raw emotions at that time of sadness, anger, whatever. But I think there's another piece that's very important when we're going through such a massive life change as divorce. And that's our kind of personal recovery, kind of emotionally and relationship skills wise, because those things I think help stand us in good stead in our lives generally, but also through the process and then afterwards. So that's kind of what we're talking about tonight.
Yeah, and it's funny, isn't it? Everyone says the first thing that people say is like, "Oh, time's a great healer," and
Yeah, what do you think about
etc.
that?
I think to a point, yes, it is. Yeah, time. The pain, the raw emotions. If you just leave it to time, I think they will lessen. But I don't think you've dealt with them if all you're doing is giving it time. I think
I
I
I
think we need
agree.
to, we learn and we coach, we've been through it ourselves and we coach our clients that you have to name the emotion, you have to face the emotions, and you have to work through them. So it's not just a case, you don't ignore them. You don't just think, oh, we've given time, they'll go away, because I don't think they do if that's all you do. So you have to sort of actively participate in it. So it's a
I
combination of time and then taking steps, taking action to
100%
work
agree
through
with
those
you.
emotions.
I think when people say give it time with anything, that's very passive. And,
Mm,
and I agree, you've got to put some active effort into growth and development here. And, that I think is very, very important. Um, so, yeah, I 100% agree. And I think some of these things, we can all learn stuff from relationships, we can all learn stuff from breakups. And actually, this stuff about um, our recovery is really, really important. And that is where the growth and development comes. So, talking things like, self belief and self worth, because very often when we've gone through a big breakup, particularly traumatic from the point of view of divorce, is massively traumatizing. Our self-belief and self-worth can take a huge
yeah,
knock if they're not already low before. Sometimes people have that from before the relationship ending.
absolutely. Yeah.
But I think working with clients on building up self-worth and self-belief is really, really important.
Yeah, and it's important to note as well that whether you're the one leaving or the one being left, I think you can, either way it can really give a knock to your confidence, but also in terms of like your sort of self image, who you are. Who are you now? You've been a mum, dad, partner for so long, but now there's been a complete change. So it's reevaluating who you are and really taking the time. It's now a time you've got the opportunity to sort of look at your values, look at what makes you tick, and look at what's really important for you going forward. So you've
Yeah.
changed. You've probably changed. If you've been married X amount of time, X amount of years, you've not only gone through that process of being married, then the divorce. You're probably going to be quite a different person than you were going into that relationship. So it is really a time to sort of step back and reevaluate what's important to you going forward, who you are,
Yeah.
and what
I
you
think
what you want what you want out of things going forward.
I think that's very true. And I think, self belief is about trusting ourselves. And, actually, we build that by experiences where we realize we can do things, we
Yeah,
can make decisions. And so, actually, setting ourselves small goals is a good way of building our self belief and our self
mm,
trust, and actually learning to rely on ourselves. Because
yeah,
if we've relied on our partner for decision making and what's going on, then when suddenly you're on your own, suddenly you find you can't make decisions even if you want to. You know, very often we hear that people just don't trust their own judgment.
That's right. Yeah.
So it's about starting small steps to understand that you can make simple decisions. So start with things that have no emotional currency, you know,
Mm.
and that it doesn't matter if you get the decision wrong. There's no fallout that's big from that. And then you learn that actually I can decide. And very often we know what we want or what we need,
That's right.
but we just don't trust ourselves to say it.
Yeah, we're sort of used, we're used to sort of, against the other person, or depending on the relationship, almost giving that up to somebody else. So like you say, it is taking small steps and making incremental decisions and building on that, and kind of realizing, stopping yourself from asking somebody else, because you might replace your partner with somebody else. Pick up the phone to your friend or family member or whatever and ask them about even like the smallest thing. So it's just stepping back, catching yourself and thinking, no, I can make my own decisions, do that. Start small and build it up from there.
Yeah, and I think that's a really good point, because it's fine to ask other people their opinion, but if this is a thing where you're trying to build your self-reliance, then make the decision yourself first. Then you can always check it with somebody rather than,
Mm.
like you
Yeah.
said, Fotis,
Yeah.
going immediately to the phone and being like, oh, what should I do? This is happening. Actually think,
Yeah.
right,
Yeah.
I think it's this, or I think the answer is this for me. You can always then
Yeah.
talk it through with somebody, but don't make that be your first kind of go-to.
It is retraining yourself to a point, isn't it?
Yeah, it
About
is.
how that, and you take step by step to build up that confidence,
Yeah,
and
you
build up.
do.
I guess something that overlaps with that is setting your own boundaries, which might have been eroded, changed, compromised, to whatever degree during your relationship. So that can take time, and it's fine. It's okay. It's okay that happens. But once you've realised, and that's part of the work that we do with clients, is recognising when boundaries have been eroded and how to build those back up. That can overlap and tally nicely with the building the self-confidence and self-reliance.
Yeah, absolutely. And boundaries are talked about a lot in life, and I would say that, a boundary, a lot of people think boundaries kind of push people away and are very
Mm.
negative, but actually it's the opposite.
Yeah.
Boundaries are merely things that tell other people what kind of behavior is acceptable to you. That's
That's
it.
right.
That's what a
Yeah.
boundary is. And boundaries are not walls that kind of keep people outside. Boundaries actually allow us to have people come close to us
That's right.
emotionally.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it's the complete opposite, actually, of pushing people away. So it's difficult sometimes when you're not used to having boundaries. Some people also say to me, oh, people are saying I'm mean now because I've started saying no to things. I'm not talking about me, by the way, Fotis, but
I
you
didn't
know,
assume that at all.
but
No.
it's not mean. People who don't like you setting boundaries suddenly
Yeah.
are people who are used to maybe being able to manipulate you.
Absolutely. Yeah.
And so the
Absolutely.
people who don't like it are usually people who can no longer manipulate you. And I think that's worth remembering.
Yeah. I mean, I think that leads on to the sort of, it's over talks about, green flags and red flags, overused phrases, but again, so important, especially when you're moving on. You're rebuilding yourself, your self-esteem, thinking about the sort of relationships that you want in the future. It's a case of looking at those boundaries, and it's not a negative; it's very much a positive. And you have to learn how to put yourself first in a non-selfish manner. We talked about this a lot, and I've done a lot of posts recently and talked with a particular clients very much, to saying that looking after yourself and putting yourself first is not selfish. I'm not saying in an arrogant way, but you have to look after yourself, especially when you've been through such a massive life transformation as a
Yeah,
divorce. It's really
100%.
important to do that in a healthy manner.
Yeah, I'm just noticing there's a comment down below from Smell At and Weep, which
Yeah.
says, you say very clearly it's easier just not to get married at all, which is kind of an opinion. That's
That's
totally
fine.
allowable and entitled to that opinion.
Yeah.
And, I always think that it's kind of a shame when people sort of, you know, put up, it comes back to boundaries, that kind of
Yeah.
comment. And there's nothing wrong with not getting married, there's nothing wrong with being single, but actually when I hear clients saying, I'm never getting married again, or I'm never
Mm.
having a date again, I'm never having another boyfriend or girlfriend, and it's whether that is led from fear or whether it's led from empowerment, because there's nothing wrong with being single at all.
Absolutely.
If you are
Absolutely.
happy and have made a conscious decision that I'm really happy where I'm at, if I
Yeah.
meet someone, great, but if I don't, great. That's very different from I'm never having a boyfriend or I'm never
Yeah.
having a girlfriend. That's putting walls up, and
Yeah.
that is led from
Absolutely. Yeah.
fear.
I totally agree. And these, setting boundaries, setting healthy boundaries and looking after yourself first in a healthy way stands for every relationship. Because that those sort of rules apply at work, they apply within your friendship groups. It doesn't have to be just in terms of a significant romantic relationship. You should have those healthy boundaries in any relationship that you've got. So yeah, totally agree. Not being married it can be a healthy choice, and that's absolutely fine. But let's not forget these can be significant breakups. You don't have to be married. So the rules that we're talking about, the strategies, the techniques that we talk about can be applied to any healthy relationship.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think with boundaries, which is kind of a topic in itself, I think, it's very much about how people set boundaries,
Mm,
because, you know, as I said a moment ago, a boundary is the way we show people what is acceptable towards us.
yeah,
And, first of all, we need to understand actually what our needs are. So our needs come from our values, and we set boundaries essentially based on our needs. So
yeah,
if we need to first make sure we're really clear on what our needs are, and then we set our boundaries accordingly. And we need to communicate them clearly, because people aren't mind readers.
yeah,
So, they don't know what our boundaries are if we don't tell people. So we need
yeah,
to communicate them clearly, and then we need to actually, implement them. So,
mm,
and if people push against our boundaries constantly, then we have choices to make, because we've communicated them clearly.
yeah.
And that is where we have to step up for ourselves and not just let people push our boundaries down straight away and we just forget about them, because that's basically where we
Yeah.
abandon our needs in a relationship.
Yeah, and you're absolutely right. If we're clear about that from the get go, then we can't be accused of mixed messaging. But it's also a way for us to sort of break any patterns. If we look back at our previous relationships, again, this is a great opportunity to sort of set those boundaries, set the green and red flags. Green flags that we want in a relationship, red flags that we absolutely do not. And it gives us that chance to communicate about those clearly and break any possible patterns that we've had up until that point. It is a great chance to do that. And as you say, if we communicate that clearly, then we can't be accused of mixed messages later on.